Rudo was a slum dweller who often broke into the junkyards of rich people to steal usable things. However, when he gets framed for his foster father's murder and gets thrown into the pit where all the garbage of the world ends up, he is forced to fight gigantic monsters made of garbage to climb his way back up and get revenge. The world is divided into two parts. On one side, there is the pristine city with rich people living their best lives, and on the other side, there are the slums where people like and belong. The only constant is the pit, where all garbage ends up, including criminals. The rich people who live in the city casually throw away even slightly damaged items without hesitation, like the woman who tells her daughter to throw away the puppy toy she just bought because it got damaged. She tells her that the toy will become ugly if they try to repair it, and they can just buy another one later. The girl has no problem with that, and her mother throws the puppy along with other garbage into the small garbage vent that leads it straight to a truck in an underground tunnel that leads to a giant trash collection site. However, the young Rudo is inside the trash collection site too, buying the stuff the trucks are carrying. He sneaks into the trash collection site and enters one of the rooms, but unfortunately, one guard hears some sound coming from the room, and he immediately checks inside to find someone rummaging through the garbage. The guard barges inside the room with his gun pointed at the trash thief Rudo, calling him a disgusting degenerate who is threatening the beauty of the city by hoarding trash. Rudo doesn't even respond to this because he hears those things every Tuesday. But then the guard sounds the alarm, calling for backup. Just as more guards arrive there, Rudo throws some garbage bags at them, and the clean freaks can't handle some raw eggs on their uniform, so they just watch him climb up the vent without doing anything. Rudo comes out of the vent near the exit, but the gate closes on his face, and just then, more guards come there. Popper Thayer? Sup here? What a bunch of shitheads. Yeah, and a threat, assholes. The next day, the news about the garbage raider spreads through the city, with the people blaming the slum dwellers for it. On the other side of the wall, the slum dwellers know exactly whom to blame because it is not the first time Rudo has entered the trash collection sites. They think that he will be caught one day, and most of them actually hope that he does. Rudo doesn't care about them as he sets his shop to sell the repaired goods he found. When his friend Chiwa arrives there to lash out at him, she asks him why the hell does he take such a big risk just to scavenge through the trash of the city people. And he replies that those rich bastards don't even care about throwing perfectly usable things. He feels sorry for the things they throw out, so he retrieves them. And since he can get some money by selling them, it is even better. Chiwa seems to understand him, but just then, 3 boys arrive there, clenching their noses as they say that someone reeks of garbage here. They tell Chiwa to stay away from Rudo, or she will smell like garbage too. They insult his thick black gloves that he has not washed since Obama was the president, and say that just one touch from them will give anyone rashes. One boy kicks the lantern Rudo just fixed, saying that no one will buy this garbage from him. He says that Rudo's hands are even creepier than the gloves, which is why he keeps them hidden. Rudo silently hears everything they say, but when one boy calls him the son of a murderer, he suddenly gets furious. The boys, however, don't stop, saying that the slum was made to imprison criminals, and the people who live here now are their descendants. That is why they always try to keep their reputation clean. But Rudo's dad brought shame to them by becoming a murderer. Rudo can't tolerate the insults anymore, and he gives a death stare to the boys, who crap their pants and immediately run away, still cursing Rudo and saying that he will become a murderer like his dad one day. Rudo then quietly starts fixing the lantern again, and Chiwa tells him that she believes that he is a good person who will never turn out like his dad. He gets embarrassed on hearing that, but before he can thank her, Chiwa's attention goes to the puppy toy he got from the dump last night. Turns out, Rudo brought the puppy as a gift for her in the first place. But before he can give it to her and increase his risk score, Chiwa's mom comes there and takes her away. Rudo heads home after that, and finds his adoptive dad Regto waiting for him. Regto suddenly starts mimicking how nervous he was while trying to give the puppy to Chiwa, and Rudo turns red because he didn't spot him watching them. Regto tells him that they will talk about it later because first, they need to talk about Rudo's little trip to the junkyard. Regto tells him that he doesn't need to push himself so hard because they are not that broke. He thinks that Rudo feels a bit indebted to him because he adopted him after his biological dad was thrown into the pit for being a murderer. But Rudo says it is not like that. He tells Regto that he considers him family, and he is just trying to do his part. Recto simply tells him to be this honest with Chiwa too, and Rudo suddenly fumbles hard, injuring the gun wound from last night. Recto immediately starts giving him first aid and also changes the bandages around his hands while he is at it. As Rudo looks at his hands, he recalls how they have been injured for as long as he has known. People always judged him for that, and sometimes his wounds started hurting like hell out of nowhere. Then one day, Recto gave him the black gloves that magically suppressed the pain. After Recto is done tending to Rudo's wounds, he tells him to confess to Chiwa soon or someone else might swoop her away. And while the two of them are bantering about it, a creepy masked guy listens to everything from the streets. The next day, Rudo finally works up courage to tell his feelings to Chiwa, and heads towards her home with the puppy, but on the way, he comes across a scene that is not really rare in the slums. At the edge of the slums, there is the pit, where all garbage and serious criminals are thrown. Today, another criminal is being thrown into the pit and Rudo can only watch the execution, wondering what happens to the people inside the pit. Just then, Chiwa comes there, saying that it is quite a brutal sight, and Rudo panics because he was not ready to meet her yet. Chiwa suddenly starts talking about the executions and other stuff, and then she tells Rudo that she doesn't want him to get thrown into the pit. She says that there might be a lot of stuff that shouldn't be thrown out as garbage, but it is not a good enough reason to risk his life. Rudo replies that Recto said the same thing and Chiwa says that it is because Recto loves him too. Rudo takes a second to process that Chiwa said that Recto loves him too, and his brain with 2 MB RAM understands that Chiwa means that she loves him. She gets flustered on realizing that her words could be interpreted that way, but Rudo has already lost his mind. He falls on the ground, clutching his face, and then gives the puppy toy to Chiwa, saying that she might not want it because it came from the garbage, but he thought the puppy would be happier with her. To his utter delight, Chiwa accepts the toy, saying that she will cherish it, and Rudo is happier than he has ever been. He jumps and dances on his way back home, thinking that he needs to boast about it to Recto immediately. On the way, he bumps into some guards who don't even bother with him, but he is curious about why they are in the slums. Anyway, Rudo reaches home and starts telling Recto about what happened just as he opened the door, but he is left aghast when he sees Recto on the ground with a creepy masked man on top of him. The masked man turns around to take one look at Rudo before plunging his knife deeper into Recto's body. Rudo loses his cool on seeing this and charges at the masked man, but he gets hit so hard that he doesn't even realize when he got knocked out. By the time Rudo comes to his senses, the masked murderer has finished his job. He picks up a book from the floor and heads outside, briefly glancing at Rudo who tries following him, but then he hears Recto's voice. Recto is still alive somehow, and with his dying breath, he tells Rudo to run away. Rudo immediately goes next to him, promising that he will get help, but Recto just tells him to run away and change this shit heap of a world into something better. With that, Recto's body falls limp and Rudo can't process what is happening. Just then, the soldiers arrive there and they zap Rudo. Believing him to be the murderer, they pin him to the ground as they tell him that he is being arrested for murder, and Rudo tells them that it was not him. The guards tell him that nothing he says matters anymore because they caught him red-handed. He keeps trying to tell them that the real murderer has just left the house, and they can still catch him. But the guards don't even want to listen to him, so they just knock him out using the traditional method of punching him in the head. Soon, Rudo is taken to the scaffold to be executed for his crimes. Everyone from the slums is present there to witness him being thrown into the pit, and even some high-profile people from the main city are there. The judge tells Rudo that murder is one of the greatest crimes one can commit, and even though he killed a mere slum dweller, the punishment will not be reduced. He declares Rudo to be killed by throwing him into the pit, and the people start cheering on hearing this. Rudo still can't believe this is happening to him, and he wishes for just one person to believe that he is not a murderer. His eyes scan through the crowd, and they stop at Chiwa. Rudo yells at her, saying that he did not kill Recto. He asks her to find the culprit, but she just says that she trusted him, but he was not worthy of that. She says that he was a murderer's son in the end and drops the toy as she turns his back on him. Her betrayal hurts Rudo more than anything else, and he snaps at the people calling him human filth who deserves to be thrown into the pit. He says that they are the real filth here because they are just blobs of meat without a brain or a will. He swears that he will send them all to hell, when suddenly he notices that the murderer is among the crowd as well. However, he gets no chance to tell anyone about it as he is thrown off the edge. Rudo feels like he has been falling forever, and at one point, he loses consciousness. Luckily, all the garbage at the bottom of the pit breaks his landing, and when he wakes up, he is completely unharmed. He wonders what the hell is happening, and how is he still alive, when the stench of the place suddenly hits him. Even the garbage thief is forced to block the smell, and then he notices the vast sea of garbage in front of him along with things that he doesn't recognize. Rudo wonders what the hell is this place when suddenly a giant shadow covers him. He turns around to see what is happening, and he can't believe his eyes when he sees a gigantic monster, made out of garbage, baring its fangs at him. Rudo's mind goes blank for a moment on seeing the monster, and he recalls how he always found it strange that everyone was so obsessed with sending garbage and human filth to the bottom of the pit, yet no one ever cared about what actually happened to them below. They didn't even think about what else could be at the bottom, and that bothered him more than anything else. However, he quickly snaps out of it and starts running for his life as the gigantic monster starts approaching him. Things suddenly take a turn for worse as the monster roars loudly, and as a result, more monsters pop out from the garbage pile. They start chasing after Rudo, who runs as fast as he can, but it is all pointless because he soon gets trapped. He wonders what these monsters are, and if they are really piles of junk that can move on their own. The monsters suddenly pounce on him, and he somehow dodges their attacks. He tries to run away but trips and falls right on top of a human skull, making him realize what his fate is going to be. Rudo curses at the bastards who threw him down to the hellish place, and just then, the heap of garbage he was standing on crumbles down. Rudo quickly finds himself at the bottom of a cliff that keeps him at a safe distance from the monsters, but there is another thing that is killing him. He realizes that the air of this place is literally poison, and if he breathes it for too long, his lungs will be torn apart. He covers his mouth and nose with his gloves, hoping to find a place to hide and recover. But then he suddenly realizes that a safe space might not even exist in this hell. He begins losing hope and suddenly pukes out blood, the sound of which attracts the monsters towards him again. Rudo falls on the ground, unable to move, and he almost accepts his fate when suddenly, Ricto's dying body pops up in his memories. A strange power suddenly surges through Rudo's hands, but he doesn't notice it. However, he feels his vision changing, and he starts seeing lights coming out from the garbage piles, and from the iron pipe in front of him. Rudo crawls towards it, determined to stay alive because he has a reason to live. He grabs the iron pipe and gets up, declaring that he will return to the surface and get his revenge on the people who sent him here and on the bastard who killed his dad. Rage starts swelling up inside him, and the monsters sneak towards him using this chance. However, as one of them attacks him, Rudo simply hits it away with the iron pipe without even bothering to look at it. As a result of that attack, a can flies away and hits the umbrella of another resident of the pit, who is surprised that someone who can fight against the monsters has arrived here. Meanwhile, Rudo has gone batshit crazy while fighting the monsters. He doesn't care about the poisonous air or the blood flowing down his nose as he keeps jumping around, and even getting slammed into the huge rocks at great speed doesn't seem to do much damage to him. A monster crushes the rock he was stuck on, burying him in rubble, but Rudo gets out and pulls a pole along with him. He swings it with full strength, dealing great damage to the monster, but then suddenly, another monster emerges from right underneath him. Rudo somehow jumps away from its jaws, but then the results of breathing in the poisonous air finally hit him. He begins spewing blood again, and the monsters use this chance to creep up on him. Luckily, his mysterious power rises once again, giving him the strength and madness to stand in his position, even as two monsters attack him at the same time. Rudo comes out of the collision safely and uses a metal sheet to cut the skull of the first monster. He then attacks the second monster, slashing it in half and causing it to explode. He takes a break after that, but then another gigantic monster begins walking towards him. The moment Rudo sees it, he decides to run away and regain his strength, but the monster stomps on the ground with its full strength, releasing a shockwave that blows him away. However, as Rudo opens his eyes, he is shocked to see a guy wearing a creepy mask standing on top of him. He wonders who is this guy and where did he come from, but the man suddenly lifts him up and kicks him ahead. Rudo coughs up some blood and is about to throw hands when the guy suddenly puts a gas mask on his face, allowing him to breathe again. Rudo is really confused now, and he asks the man if he is a local. He wants to know about this place and the monsters here, but the masked man just asks him to be silent. Obviously, someone with a single-digit IQ can't understand orders, and Rudo keeps asking him about this place loudly. The masked man once again whispers at him to shut up, but Rudo tells him to speak more clearly. He asks if they are underground, and the masked man finally snaps at this. He forgets his own advice and yells at Rudo, telling him that they are not underground but above the surface, and it is the fault of the people living at the top for turning this place into a hellhole. He then tells Rudo that the giant monsters made out of trash are attracted to sound, and thanks to him not shutting up, they have noticed him now. The masked man says that the trash beasts can't be defeated with ordinary weapons, so their best choice was to sneak away silently, but they can't do it anymore. One monster reaches behind them by this point, and the masked man decides to deal with it before anything else. A golden energy suddenly emerges from his arm and coats his umbrella, transforming it into a weapon. The monster attacks them, but the masked man simply swirls his umbrella in its face, using it like a handheld blender to grind away the monster. The monster's pieces fall away everywhere, and they suddenly turn to dust. Rudo was already surprised by the strange power-up, but now he is even more curious about the monsters not regenerating after being hit by this attack. Just then, a huge horde of monsters arrive there, but the masked guy is confident that he can deal with all of them. He dashes towards the monsters, quickly blowing them up with his bladed umbrella, and then jumps up, using his umbrella as a parachute. Rudo wonders if this is some kind of technology the people in the pit use, or if it is unique to the masked man. Meanwhile, the masked man drifts in front of the last remaining giant monster, who suddenly spits a ball of acid at him. He blocks and scatters the acid with his umbrella, and the acid violently explodes on hitting the garbage patches. The masked man then uses the monster's head as a base to jump up higher, and after that, he pours more energy into his umbrella, increasing its size and destructive power. He dives towards the monster's head with that, cutting through him and the ground as well. Once that is done, the masked man heads back to Rudo, who asks him who the hell is he. The man removes his mask and introduces himself as Injin, a simple cleaner, but the very next moment, the sick air makes him regret his decision. Injin curses Rudo for making him take off his mask, and then suddenly, Rudo collapses. While he is unconscious, he dreams of an incident from his childhood. He had returned home after being bullied and pushed into the sewer by the other boys because he told them that objects are alive, and they didn't believe him. Recto asked him if he hit the boys back, and Rudo replied that he did not. He asked Recto if he was really telling the truth when he said that when an object is treated with care, a soul will eventually come to inhabit it. As Recto cleaned him up, he said that the story was just an old legend to make people cherish what they had. But personally, he liked to believe that everything had a soul. Rudo grew increasingly curious on hearing this, and asked if the things around their house had a soul too, including his gloves. Recto just replied that if he treats them with care, they would have a soul one day. Rudo suddenly wakes up from his dream with that, and he finds himself chained and being dragged by Injin. Rudo curses him, telling him to let him free, but Injin says that he is just taking him to a safe place. Rudo doesn't care about that anymore because he wants to go back up to get his revenge, but those words make Injin stop in his tracks. He tells Rudo that it is impossible to climb back up to the place they call the sphere, which is basically in the sky, and it is constantly on the move. He then resumes dragging Rudo, saying that getting back is not possible now, and he should just calm down and accept his new situation. Rudo, however, refuses to give up, saying that he will get back to the sphere at all costs. He believes that Injin knows the way to go there, but is hiding it from him, and he yells at him to tell him everything he knows, or he will keep shouting till more monsters come. Injin is pissed at this, and he tells Rudo that he will tell him exactly what kind of place this is. He starts dragging him even more carelessly and finally takes him to a clearing in a canyon that is 100 times cleaner than the surroundings. Injin drops him there, telling him to have fun as he quickly leaves. Rudo curses him to at least free him, but Injin goes away without saying anything. Suddenly, a bunch of men wearing gas masks come out of the trucks, and they start heading towards Rudo. He wonders if they are the inhabitants of this place, and the people are also incredibly curious about him. Judging by his clothes, they wonder if he is from the sphere, and they creepily approach him with their questions. Rudo nervously tells them that he fell from the sphere, and the men suddenly throw away their masks. They seem really excited to see a living sphere dweller with them, because they always found their dead bodies in the past. They get overly curious and begin examining Rudo's face, and he immediately moves away from them. The men tell him that they mean no harm and start untying him, which makes him think that they are much nicer than Injin. However, it all turns out to be a trap, and soon, Rudo finds himself chained really tightly inside a truck. He wonders what the hell is happening, but the men outside talk about how lucky they are to get a real living spherite because he will definitely fetch an enormous amount. They talk about how people pay crazy money for the body parts and clothes of the dead spherites, and finding a rare one will drive them crazy. The leader of the men then tells Rudo that the reason people are willing to pay such a huge amount of money for spherites is because they hate them. He curses the people living in the sphere who dumped all their waste on the planet until it piled up, poisoning the air and creating monsters. The people who died from the monsters or lost their homes because of the toxic air and land bear deep grudges against the spherites, and once they find a live one, they will go medieval on his. The leader then decides to feed Rudo something to welcome him to the surface, and that food is rotten meat and other spoiled things. He keeps mocking him throughout, saying that spherites like him don't even touch garbage, so he can't possibly digest food like this. However, as he tries to shove a piece of meat down Rudo's throat, the man makes the biggest mistake of his life. Rudo suddenly bites his fingers, tearing out the flesh from them and chewing it up along with the rotten stuff he ate earlier. He then starts eating the rotten food, saying that it is not trash because it is still perfectly edible. The man crap their pants because they have never seen a beast like this, but that is just the beginning. Rudo is mad at everyone for labeling things as trash and unworthy of being used, and he is no longer going to take it sitting down. His power manifests again, and he breaks free from his chains. He jumps outside and releases his energy onto the ground, lifting the objects around him. Injin watches everything from a distance, and he is really pleased to see that Rudo turned out to be a giver, a person who can give life to objects and draw out their power, just like him. Meanwhile, on the ground, Rudo thinks about Rikto's words that treating objects with care makes them alive, and they treat their humans with care too. He throws away his mask and grabs the chain used to tie him, infusing it with life and turning it into a weapon. The men rush towards him, but Rudo just hits the ground with his chain, forcing them to retreat. Their leader tells them to target the chain because a giver is useless without their object, and his men succeed in disarming Rudo quickly. However, to their utter shock and Injin's utter delight, Rudo picks up a tire and turns it into a weapon too, which is too rare even for powerful givers. He makes quick work of the men and then moves on to their leader, who keeps cursing him while crapping his pants. But just as Rudo is about to strike him, Injin comes there and stops him. Rudo suddenly snaps out of his frenzy, and his power dies down. The tire he was using suddenly turns to dust, and Rudo gets a nosebleed as he tries to figure out exactly what he did just now. Injin says that using his power so recklessly is bound to tire his body. He then apologizes for testing Rudo like this, but he wanted to make sure of his powers. He promises to tell him everything about this world and his powers, but in exchange, he wants Rudo to join the cleaners because they need people like him to fight the monsters. However, that is a bit too much for Rudo to process, and he says that he doesn't want to join them. As it turns out, Injin doesn't know what the word no means, and he takes Rudo to a clinic to get treated while calling his friend that he found a genius and recruited him into the cleaners. Rudo is shocked to hear that because he never agreed to join him. He says that he needs to go back to the sphere immediately, but the creepy doctor with eyes wider than the holes on a pool table tells him to stop talking. He screams at Rudo for going out into the no man's land because the air there is literally poison. He calls him an idiot sandwich for getting kidnapped on top of that, and tells him to thank Injin who rescued him from 2 horrible fates in one day. Rudo curses Injin in his mind, and then the doctor, who turns out to be an old woman and gets offended when Rudo calls him an old man. Once she is done with the treatment, she kicks Rudo and Injin out. Outside, Rudo thanks Injin for paying for his treatment, and tells him that he just needs information on how to get back. He says that he doesn't have any time to become a cleaner or whatever is it that he calls himself. But Injin replies that he hoped that being kidnapped would teach him how spherites are treated down here. He tells Rudo that if anyone finds out that he is from the sphere, he will regret being born, and moreover, he cannot find any information for free here. Injin then leads him to a desolate dystopian city, but it is a lot better than the filthy world outside. He even treats Rudo to a burger, and he gulps it down without holding back because he puked out all the rotten meat he ate a while back. He used to think that the bottom of the pit would be filled with nothing but garbage. But there are cities here with people living in them. He notices a girl going inside the store and starts staring at her, but then Injin decides to give him a lesson about the surface. He says that garbage isn't the only thing that builds up here, as emotions also build up in the form of an energy called anima. The trash beasts are one of the ways in which anima manifests itself, and though they mostly stick to the garbage dumps, they sometimes attack the cities as well. He says that normal weapons can't hurt the trash beasts because their cores are made of anima, but Rudo's gloves can. Rudo is surprised to hear this, and Injin tells him that when an object is treated with care for a long time, anima gathers inside it as well, and they call such objects vital instruments. Vital instruments can destroy the cores of trash beasts, but not everyone can draw out the power inside of them. Injin says that people like them who can draw out that power are called givers, and their organization, the Cleaners, is full of givers who exterminate trash beasts. Rudo asks Injin if he promises to tell him how to return to the sphere if he joins the Cleaners, and he replies that he has no clue about that. Rudo lashes out at him for deceiving him, and Injin reminds that he never said that he knew how to send him back. However, he claims that his boss is really wise, and he might be able to help Rudo in his quest to return home. Rudo is pissed because now he needs to meet Injin's boss before making a decision, but then Injin asks him about the gloves. Rudo tells him that his dad gave them to him, and they are the only thing to remember him by. Injin now understands why he cares so much about the worn-out gloves, and he tells Rudo to treat them with care because they have a strong soul in them. Rudo gets emotional because everyone else always mocked him for his gloves, but then Injin gets a message and decides to meet a work friend. Rudo suddenly gets up and thanks him for everything, and in return, Injin throws a pouch of money at him, telling him to be careful how he spends it. Rudo can't believe he is giving him money on top of everything he has already done for him, but Injin tells him that it is no big deal because he got the money by selling his clothes. That is how he was able to get him treated and fed, so he doesn't even need to thank him for it. Rudo goes ballistic on hearing this, but Injin tells him that he couldn't go around the city wearing clothes from the sphere anyway. He says that he is going to meet his trainer now, and tells him to wait here patiently. Rudo is really furious at him, but then he notices a cat taking his money and running away. He gives chase immediately but can't reach the cat. Luckily, he spots a crescent moon-shaped stick on the street, and immediately takes it with him, using it to stop the cat. Just as he manages to pin the cat down, the staff's owner comes there, and he is pissed at Rudo for trying to steal his precious staff. Rudo asks him what is precious about this stupid piece of wood, and the man gets even more angry at this. He quickly takes back his stick and then pushes Rudo away, telling him that he will pay for his crimes. Before that, the man starts getting freaky with his staff, and Rudo is utterly confused by that. Just then, he sees the symbol of cleaners that was on Injin's umbrella, and realizes that the guy in front of him is also a cleaner. The guy activates the power of his staff and turns it into a weapon, attacking Rudo with it. However, he misses on purpose because Injin had already told him about Rudo. He then introduces himself as Zanka, the guy who will be in charge of his training on Injin's request. He says that he never thought he would have to teach a brat that he should not steal from others, and Rudo tells him that he was just borrowing the stick to get his money back. Zanka says that his father must have not raised him right, and Rudo gets really pissed because he can't tolerate anyone insulting Recto. However, as he thinks of Recto, he remembers that he once told him that if he wants someone to listen to him, he should take the first step back from a fight and try to understand how the other person feels. Following those words, Rudo thinks that Zanka has the right to be mad because took his treasure from him suddenly. He feels that he would be mad if someone took his gloves even by mistake and realizes that it was his fault. He apologizes to Zanka for it, and the man calms down equally fast as well. He tells Rudo that it is all good since he returned the staff, and he should have tried to react more calmly as well. Well, Rudo is completely bamboozled by the sudden change in his personality, and also because this is the first time he has managed to defuse a stressful situation just by talking. He keeps thinking that Recto was right about more things than he thought, and then Zanka helps him back on his feet. He asks him about his vital instrument and what he can do with it. Rudo tells him that his vital instruments are probably his gloves, but he doesn't know about their ability yet. Zanka examines his gloves and remarks that they are really cool, but Rudo is still marveling at how different he seems now. He suddenly realizes that it must be because he is smiling now, and Recto always told him to smile if he wanted to make friends. Unfortunately, Rudo has never smiled before, and he would need a gym trainer to teach him how to use his face muscles properly. Even more unfortunately, he doesn't know that, and he makes his best effort to copy a human smile, but ends up giving the most horrifying expression Zanka has ever seen on a human face. He crashes out at Rudo again, asking what kind of face is he making. He asks him if he is mocking him with that face, and Rudo asks him why is he mad this time because this was the best smile he could give. Zanka tells him that even a blind guy could tell that it was not a smile, so Rudo decides to close his eyes and lips to make it appear more natural. He appears less creepy this time, but that is not enough to stop Zanka from being pissed. He thinks that Rudo is overconfident because Injin called him a genius, and now he is mocking him. He says that he can never achieve his goals if he keeps fooling around like this, but that was one line he should have not crossed. Rudo thinks about his goal to return to the sphere and change it as per Ricto's last wishes, and he tells Zanka that he is dead serious about them. He tells him to stop insulting him, and Zanka draws his weapon out again, saying that they are not going to get along well. Rudo agrees with him and pulls out a metal rod from the garbage bin nearby, awakening its power. Zanka is shocked to see him use a random object as his vital instrument, and he realizes why Injin called him a genius. However, he is still confident that if Rudo has just natural talent, he won't be able to beat a mediocre person like him who has worked hard to reach this level. Rudo doesn't even notice that the taunt was a distraction till Zanka's staff falls right in front of him, missing him by a couple of inches. He is forced to dodge and run away as Zanka goes on the offensive and quickly pins him to the ground. Zanka is satisfied with his victory, but then he notices something on his face. He wipes it off and then smells it out of curiosity, only to find that it is poop. He freaks out as he realizes that the metal rod that Rudo picked up was a part of a toilet plunger. He tries explaining what a plunger is, but Rudo is not in the mood to hear anything, and he begins swinging around the plunger that is still full of somebody's dinner. Zanka panics and does his best to dodge the flying all over the place, and eventually, he runs away from Rudo. Rudo doesn't understand why he is so scared now, but it works in his favor anyway, so he gives chase, terrorizing Zanka with the plunger. After a while of running down different alleys like old Tom and Jerry cartoons, Zanka escapes to the main street with Rudo close behind him. Suddenly, a cat trips Zanka, and he loses his balance, giving Rudo the chance to close the gap. He jumps up high, swinging the plunger with full strength at the petrified Zanka. He gets hit by a barrage of flying poop that knocks him out cold, and after a while, Injin arrives there to check up on them. He asks Rudo if he met his new teacher already, and he just points towards Zanka, who is lying on top of a garbage pile and spazzing out like crazy. Injin helps him get clean and gives him a ride, but he can't stop laughing about how Zanka got done in by poop. Rudo is also traumatized on learning the truth about the weapon he was swinging around on the streets, and then Injin tells him that Zanka is a spoiled kid, and he never expected someone to deal with him like this. Rudo can only stare at the mortified Zanka when he notices a pair of boots in the back seat of the car. Injin then tells Rudo that their first may have not been the best, but Zanka is going to be his teacher from now on. He praises him, saying that he is the most skilled trainer when it comes to handling vital instruments. Apparently, Zanka values Injin's words a lot, and he starts giggling on hearing that. Just then, Injin calls out to the woman named Rio in the back of the car, asking when did she come here. She wakes up from her beauty nap and replies that she was curious about the new guy. Rudo can only stare at him because she is quite pretty, and then Rio suddenly starts playing with his hair because they are quite unique, making him wonder if he accidentally came to heaven. While he is lost in his thoughts, Injin drives his car out of the city, leading them to the cleaner's headquarters situated in the middle of the wilderness. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.